Good morning, LinkedIn friends, Value First Nation. Welcome to another episode of Value First Revenue with my buddy Zach Hussion. How you doing, man?
What's up, bud? Good. It's Friday. We don't usually talk on Fridays, so you know it's an exceptionally good mood kind of a day
Yeah,
because
we're getting it in. We're
that means
showing
I
up.
have a whole bunch of things on my honey-do list coming up here for the weekend.
There you go.
Yeah.
Got to get it in sometime.
Yep. Well, every once in a while, it's healthy to just kind of turn HubSpot off for a couple hours and get out there into the world.
touch some grass, as my
Yeah.
buddy like
Yes. Well, I
Rob
was just listening.
Jones
Have you
likes to
ever heard
say.
of the podcast, The Hidden Brain,
I have not.
with Shankar Vedantam, or I always struggle with his last name. It's a good podcast. They talk a lot about human psychology and behavior and things like that. And the one I listened to yesterday was all about how being in nature is really, really healthy and healing. And so that's what we'll do this weekend.
Yep. That's a good
You know.
plan.
Well, we have to heal from all of the chaos that we deal with every week as we're
Right.
navigating these overly complex sales pipelines and ticket pipelines, which I know is our topic of today.
Yeah.
Overcomplicating the heck out of pipelines.
Yeah, and it may be hard to believe, but we're trying to build CRMs for our teams that allow you to take time to go and hang out in nature and not in your CRM,
There you go.
um, as opposed to these. Oh man, these deal pipelines that have just all of the stages from first touch to delivery and customer success, like everything's in there.
Everything's in there.
All of
Yep.
these required properties that doesn't work out so well, does it, man?
Yeah. Yeah. I see a lot of common kind of mistakes in these pipelines. One of them being bringing things into the pipeline too soon. So, like taking what really should be part of your lead qualification pipeline and bringing that into your deal pipeline. So, I see things where it's like lead qualified, or prospect identified, or some of these pre-deal activities showing up as early deal pipeline stages. I see that a lot. And then on the back end, same kind of thing. It's like you have all these kind of customer success onboarding steps in your deal pipeline after you receive the PO and after you've kind of won the deal that maybe should be better suited as a ticket or something like that. And then everything in between, which is usually too many steps, steps that are not buyer centric, unnecessary steps that, like, it's just like, yeah, it's obvious, of course I'm going to do this thing. Why should this be a stage in the pipeline? It doesn't, this is unnecessary for me to even track this. Like, of course I'm going to send the quote. Yeah.
But we got to make sure you set the
Yeah.
quote, Zach,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you do it in the right way and not
Right.
outside of the CRM, even though
Yeah.
I can't work within the structure, so I'm going to send it outside of the CRM because
Yeah.
that's how I get the deal done. Right.
And a lot of these messy pipelines are kind of reflective of like just a messy sales process or service process, that the company has itself, not necessarily just HubSpot being the culprit. Although you could, have a relatively simple, straightforward process on paper and then make it overly complicated in HubSpot and vice versa, right? But I
Yeah.
think that's why it's really critical to kind of make sure you map out that process first. What should it be? And kind of have those meetings with the stakeholders who are going to be accountable for this. And it's not just sales, it's not just marketing, it's not just success. It's like everybody's got to get together to talk about how the customer flows through these three different customer facing teams. And part of that is going to be a deal pipeline. Part of that's probably going to be a ticket pipeline. Part of that's going to be a lead pipeline. They all need to fit in their areas. And
Yeah.
everything has a home, right? It's supposed to be there, not somewhere else.
Right. That's been the most powerful thing that I wasn't anticipating when I started working on data models and making sure Like, let's get you out of the deals. Let's manage this like in other places. And the first thing that the true innovation was allowing other teams to own the object, to own the record view that they were in without worrying about sales seeing it. And can we name things the way that we need to, or is that going to confuse the sales team? Right. So I'd like to level set here, like to make sure we all understand why the pipelines are important in the first place. And for me, it's helping leaders, like everybody, honestly. Like,
Mm-hmm.
common question of any day are is where are we with blank?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's exactly what pipelines are designed to do, until you build them in a way where it's like, I don't know what that stage means. Like, it
Right.
looks like maybe this is this person responsible? Am I responsible for this part? Because I don't know what. Right.
Or it's not, or it's like we know what this stage means, um, but we've either forgotten to put some required properties in there, maybe to make sure that we have some more context when we get to that stage, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe we're still have some leaks in the bucket in some part of the process where people are skipping over that stage, or right. So it's like we may agree what this stage means, but then how do you get people to actually
Yeah. Because
follow
you
the
just told
process?
me on the call information that makes it's clearly not in that stage.
Right. Right.
Right. So now
Yeah.
we can't trust the stages that we're seeing,
Right.
even though we know what they mean. So
Right.
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, but I think like this is a lot of the work that we're doing with Value First, is trying to unravel a lot of the unfortunate practices that have developed based on the systems that we're trying to like fit everything into. Because like, first of all, give yourself some permission that your deal pipeline is the way it is, because for a long time it was one of the only things that had a pipeline in HubSpot that was in front of your team.
Yep.
And pipelines and stages feel like you're supposed to, okay, if it's stage and gate, if it makes sense to manage in that way, let's get it in there, because that's the only place that we can do that in HubSpot. So definitely made sense. The other thing that we're seeing is decoupling from all the post sales revenue that's just very transactional, that when you like, deal pipelines are meant for like sales management of a process. When somebody just comes in and they pay you and get out, like there is no sales process,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
right? And deals traditionally has been the only way to track, revenue and dollars in HubSpot. And now we've got commerce, I've got invoices, subscriptions, orders, all these other places to kind of like
Well, that's
pull that out.
interesting that you bring that up, because this was a recent conversation that we had this week. Of course, you must be listening, I think, to my conversations here, Chris. Um, you know, the 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 teams, they. I'm trying to think how I can say this the best way. I'm kind of losing my thought here a little bit,
Well,
but
like the reason I bring that up is because, again, we've been trying to help you think outside of the system. Like, don't let HubSpot or whatever
oh,
tools you're
I just got
using,
it. Yeah, sorry.
right,
Yeah.
decide what your process needs to be, right? And
Yeah.
and like the challenge right now, as all these commerce things, like immediately, like when they changed the Shopify integration to move from deals to orders, right? Now there's two places that are tracking revenue. And unless you set up automation to recreate closed won deals,
Yeah.
there was no way to report on the revenue like together. They've come a
That's where I
long
was
way
going.
since
That's where I was
then,
going. Yeah,
right?
it's like, so the one specific example, actually there's two examples that came up recently, which is like, we only put deals in HubSpot that are over $25,000,
What?
right? Or $50,000. These are
Yeah.
real conversations. Or what you're saying is like we have these two different types of deals. We have ones where we're moving it through the process, right? Because there's all these steps involved. And there's other ones where someone just says, here's a PO, or I just want to order this thing. And that's where I see some of the friction here, is because the sales rep's like, well, I don't need to walk this deal through every stage of the process. Like, I just got the PO, but now you're telling me I need to enter all this stuff that really is important to getting the PO. I already got it. So either we have another deal pipeline that allows me like a shorter, condensed kind of like, oop, I got it in there, right? Or using like you had mentioned, a different kind of object. Maybe it's an order object, maybe it's something else that we're tracking. But what do what kind of thoughts do you have on some best practices there? Because I see a lot of friction with that, specifically based on if it's a super easy deal, it doesn't require all these steps, then I'm just not going to put it in. Or if it's too small, I'm not going to put it in. Or I got the PO already, I don't want to follow. So like, what are you seeing out there a little bit?
Right. So the thing I'm trying to help people unpack is that this needs to come. It's so nuanced, right? Because it's pretty easy to get people aligned with, yes, unified customer view is a good thing. Unified revenue view, we have to have it. We haven't been able to rely on any marketing and sales systems. So like, because it includes like forecast revenue and like, deals and decisions, like, are even all the deals like inside of the system, because there are like little things that just go directly into the ERP or the other system. So literally we've got to like usually we're piecemealing together like the unified revenue view, but everybody wants it, right? And like, so defining that, but as a leader, you can't say, hey, sales team, I need you to put all of this stuff, I need you to manage the CRM like in this way so that we as leaders can just have our fancy views, right? Because that's not gonna, they don't like that, because that, especially when it gets in the way of like selling and building relationships and building trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we can get alignment here, then it's okay. Can we understand the purpose of these objects as they've been built, right? And the deal is built for sales management, right? So instead of trying to figure out like, because this is where as teams come and they say, oh man, our sales process is just like, it's not in good shape. Like, there's not a lot of documentation. If we can't start here where I'm suggesting, it becomes very easy. Like, well, what do you do? And then it's like activity, activity, activity. All right, stage, right? Like, that's how it's like designed to go when you do discovery and ask questions in that way. If before we do that, we say, okay, we've agreed that it makes sense that a deal is for sales management only, everything gets graded against that. So the orders that are just hitting Shopify or e-commerce that there is no sales process to manage cannot be a deal, right? And the days of being forced to use deals in HubSpot to report on revenue are gone, right? And that means that some additional complexity is needed for the data model. So if we back out here and we see like we've got commercial objects, we've got an order object now, right? Which in the systems that have traditionally done this, unified transaction view, unified revenue views, they managed a lot of this through order objects, right? Like, what did we deliver what we promised, and did we get paid for what was delivered, right? When you think of that, that's why we know we need to do that. And that's why we add it to deals, because we need to keep track of that stuff too. And this is the place we've been tracking. So let's just add it in. But then you see, like, it doesn't hit closed one until it's like delivered or at all, or it just moves to the next process. Like, and then you lose all your reporting like capabilities that that people want. So starting from these places, again, like, can we have shared language for what these objects are supposed to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
And as we get to invoice payments, this is where all of this stuff is in HubSpot now,
Yeah.
folks. Like, you can have this. And again, like, I think it can be very tricky when you don't boil it down to, is there a sales process to manage or not? Right. Because that means, like, if there's a renewals team, let's say, and it's subscriptions, if there's a lot of process to manage, but there's a different team to do it, like, that's when you might just create a different kind of deal pipeline because they have to manage completely differently.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's another thing I think we're unraveling right now is the quote unquote best practice of trying to just have one deal pipeline and then figure out every other way to
Yeah.
like report on all the like the different product lines, the different business units, the different people, right? And that's where the power of getting the data model right, getting the process right, understanding who's doing what and what they need to do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The simple act of saying, all right, team, that's completely different from the new business team. You are in charge of this pipeline, right? And now, because we've made that distinction in HubSpot, we can set up different views, make sure nobody gets confused,
Mm-hmm.
make it easier to collaborate on stuff effectively,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I mean, like if you're like, let's say that you're a customer success or customer service team, you're going to have maybe cross sell, upsell, renewal kind of opportunities. That's a lot different than your new business development team pushing a deal through the pipeline. So you can't squeeze them both into that same pipeline. So it's like either have a second pipeline for that team or track it a slightly different way because it doesn't have to be a deal pipeline. It could be some other kind of pipeline with a revenue tied to it, whether that's you're modifying ticket pipelines or coming up with custom objects and pushing those through their own, pipelines, or just keeping it simple and using the deal object for a separate pipeline. But, giving people their own view, their own process to follow, and not trying to, squeeze it all into the same box.
Yeah.
That causes, so it's like either you're trying to have everybody do the same thing or do different things in the same pipeline, or you have, 20 different pipelines and you're, just jumping from one to the next. And then how do you report on that? Really? That's even, yeah. So it's like,
you export stuff from the CRM and you make slides and spreadsheets and, infuse naturally some bias, like as you do that, and you never have that unified view. Like, you just don't get to it.
Yep.
And I've been saying a couple times this week, especially with unified customer views, like the only people that usually have that are the salesperson managing that account. Because they have a lot of stuff in their head. They're part of, they can see, they've built up their world, whether it's inboxes, LinkedIn, like some CRM, whatever system they need, or they're constantly calling people to make sure they're understanding of status.
Yeah.
They are the only ones that have the customer view. We kind of know that over time. So we look forward to the Monday morning meeting where we're just saying stuff out loud to make sure, everybody's aligned. Right. And the power, like when you get this stuff right, the power of those Monday morning meetings, when instead of just bringing everybody up to speed, everybody's already up to speed.
And now you're talking and having conversations about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And they show up to the meeting and we're doing like, like, do you need help? Like, we saw like the insights that you can discuss.
Yeah.
When we're not talking about, is the dashboard right? We can't see all the data, right? Tell us what's going on, Zach.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Zach, we saw this happen.
Yeah.
Here's a bright idea. Like, and now we think you'll be able to close it this week because production's been working on something and engineering's got this ready. So like, man, we should be able to close this, like, no problem.
Yeah, there was a guy I was listening to. I was walking the dog yesterday, and it was one of the HubSpot podcasts, and they were talking about, kind of going through your your call reviews, your pipeline reviews, your meeting reviews, right? This kind of like that Monday, whatever you call it, right? Monday meeting, or that kind of that weekly meeting for the team. I'm not a big fan of the Monday morning meeting. Maybe Monday afternoon, but it was like they would pick one person on the team and say, you're in charge of bringing, a deal or a meeting or an opportunity or something like that to the table, right, to discuss. And everybody else on the team is going to review this information. And we're going to talk about the positives. We're going to talk about some criticisms of it. But we're going to give you the ability to stand up in front of the room and criticize yourself first. And I thought that was a really, really smart idea to have that person kind of criticize themselves first. It really kind of, it lowers the tension, and, you can kind of make fun of yourself a little bit. And then it when you receive that criticism, eventually it's less of a blow and it's more constructive. You're probably more likely to have a positive take on it versus, feeling a little threatened and defensive.
Yeah.
But that's
also,
what I see good teams doing, is they're actually talking about, let's talk about, how did we get this opportunity? How do we move this opportunity to where it's at? Like, what do we need to do to close this opportunity? Why did we win this? Why did we lose this? Like, let's talk about and then having those conversations with the team, versus what I see a lot of is just, here's the morning, Monday morning dashboard. And, it's showing like leads in progress, and, maybe showing like some pipeline stuff. And it's just like, okay, guys, like, this is where we're at. And then, so-and-so looks like your calls are low, or, and you're just kind of picking out a couple data points and just telling the team to do better, versus it really should be more of a training and help, let's help each other and talk about, let's dissect this thing and use that as the opportunity.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like, when you don't have to have the conversation that's, hey, Zach, how's it going with XYZ company?
Great.
Well, I reached out last week, this and that. So it's like, no, everybody comes with that context.
Yeah.
And now we have the space to do role playing, training, strategy, coaching, all the things we all know need to happen.
Yeah.
And now that meeting becomes infinitely more valuable. Yeah. And it really starts with understanding, the buying and selling process together. Like, there's no sorry guys, there's no shortcuts to this part, which having said that, the shortcuts that are happening are like, when you build like something like HubSpot correctly, that's automatically capturing and creating these insights to say, like, okay, last 10 deals very quickly, what was the same, what was different? And then you bring that to the meeting, talk through that. Is that data making sense? If not, why not? Okay, let's make the change necessary to have it make sense, right? And the reason that I like to start with customer view here, like, so I'm working on this app, this like kind of teaching app, right? Like, we've got to find ways to help people understand the complexity without always being in the tool and making it about, well, we're just trying to build into HubSpot just because we pay for HubSpot, right?
Yep.
It's like, no, not at all. But imagine this level of visibility, right? So this is an example, manufacturing company, like timeline 22 months, right? And I guarantee you, like, as we go through this, like, don't even question, every leader wants this level of visibility, right? They just don't believe that any one system can give it to them. And what we're saying is that a properly built out and used HubSpot can give you this, right? So two different stakeholders involved at two different levels of like relationship with us. Jennifer went through all of the life cycle stages as the champion, but Tom, as plant manager, was involved, didn't believe what was going on, but he's now an advocate. But if you look at this relationship timeline here for Jennifer, right? Extended warranty renewal. Oh, she did some stuff at the manufacturing like quality summit. We should care about that because she's going to mention her time with us and things like that. Application consulting, system upgrade package. Uh, she agreed to a case study at some point. We love it when that happens. Um, some quality certification, some replacement parts, a service call required, service repair visit, consumables, subscription. So all this stuff, right? And once we get that, and the reason it starts with the customer view, like, because there's so much nuance and we want to learn about what things are working and what things aren't. And when you just pull accounting data and ERP data, it misses like all of that context, right? So that when you get to here, the unified revenue view, you've got that context, right? And in a traditional CRM, everything stops at closed won. And we know that we have a feeling that this is happening, right? This extra $160,000 is somewhere in the ERP. And unless we let the CFO like just download everything into his spreadsheet and break everything out based on products, that's the only way we get to the visibility. But here's what we do in the meantime. If we know that this is possible, we start to put this revenue on teams like customer service, customer success, without any of the tooling they need to handle this effectively. Because we know that these things are possible and that the board is telling us that, hey, your competitor over here has 20% of their bottom line is services. Well, we need to go there. Like we need to get that. And you have no idea what percentage of your bottom line it is right now, right? This is the path that we're talking about. And something that was interesting, I wanted to share with you, Zach. I think you'll appreciate. I just discovered this yesterday. Like this kind of breakout based on, so imagine it like, okay, we closed the deal, right? Once they get to these stages of adopter and advocate, they start asking for more stuff. They're receptive to the service contract or the additional warranty. Like nobody's renewing warranty if they don't get to these places, right? I wish that were 100% true, but it's like the idea is, right? If you want to fulfill like your maximum revenue potential of each account, we're making sure they get here, and it's not just they're forced to get our warranty because they have our equipment installed and it's so hard for them to move. Well, as soon as the new company shows up and provides a better experience, they're switching, right? So you want to avoid that. But what's interesting is that we usually don't have this level of visibility in our systems of record. Yet we create things like lead value, like MQL value, SQL. We assign dollar amounts to hope. And when we do that, that's what kind of destroys the credibility of the CRM and of the marketing funnel and sales funnel, because inherently over time, like CFOs and company leaders, they can't forecast and like plan business resources on hope, right? I know that might sound a little harsh, but the key is, and I think we've said this a lot, like you have this data exists. The data exists for you to be able to do that. We're just not designing systems, that can do it for you. Right. But the visibility of like, of course, everybody wants this visibility of when things happened and how much it was worth. And like they yearn for
So
this, right?
yeah. So this is, it's a cool tool that you built here. It, you had mentioned, sometimes we just need to kind of step outside a HubSpot to have the conversation. And so Do you like when do you bring it in? When do you bring the conversation into HubSpot so you can show, because it's like it it helps illustrate the challenge and the solution well, but it looks drastically different than what you see in HubSpot, right?
Right.
So do you feel like that it, it helps clarify more, or maybe adds a little confusion as you jump from what you just showed to, well, this is how it's handled in HubSpot, and it's like you can do all this stuff in HubSpot, so why not show more of this stuff in HubSpot? So I'm just trying to challenge that a little bit to say, why not do it in HubSpot? What's the advantage to doing it outside like that?
Right. So this is definitely experimental
Yeah,
in
I'm
nature.
curious.
I'll
Yeah,
say that.
yeah,
But what we're seeing is it's so hard to go from very high level things like flywheel, right? Which everybody's like, yeah, that makes sense. And then we go down to like stages and property levels of stuff in HubSpot, right? And because like once you open up a HubSpot portal, it's challenging to one, um, like not go to that level,
I was just gonna say, like, this does not get too granular and go into the weeds and say, "Ooh, look at this shiny
right?
object over here." Because even if you don't want to talk about it and somebody sees it, they're like, "What's that thing?"
Yeah,
And now
exactly.
you're
And
going
that
down that
happens
rabbit hole.
all
Yeah, it
the
happens
time
all the
because
time.
we
Yeah,
love that energy. Like it's
sure.
hard to resist that energy. It's like, yeah, let's go there.
Yeah,
That's what the best HubSpot portals like offer. But also what I'm seeing is there is an immense amount of work required to understand your business and then like see it in HubSpot in a not like confusing or distracting way, I
yeah,
think is what I'm experiencing. So can we like how do we bridge the gap between super high level diagrams of life cycle stages and flywheels and then business process diagrams and then what's actually happening in HubSpot?
yeah,
And when I first started creating this, I just asked for like a like show me what a value for a CRM would look like based on having these stages built out. And the first thing I got to is like create a contact record. And I'm like, oh, I don't got time to build all that out, right? That kind of data that can get to like this is possible, like this view where we've seen everybody involved, all the transaction activity, all of the touch points, right? We need to believe, I think that that's possible.
yeah.
And over time, I anticipate we will be able to build out HubSpot, like various use cases. And I'm sure
Yep.
this is what the corporate sales team at HubSpot, I would imagine they have things like this. But even there, right? Like if you wait to show the HubSpot thing to deal with the language differences between like even opportunities and deals, right? Like if you wait until HubSpot's on the screen and now you got to have that conversation,
Yeah,
like it kills the momentum.
yeah,
So a lot of this is like, so I think it starts to simplify like when we can say, okay, let's start here. Like everybody, we need some agreements on the big picture stuff that's not so fluffy either, right? And once we can agree on this is an outcome, like there's no KPIs here. It's do we have a unified view or not?
right. Yeah,
Right. And if we don't, and we say we want one, what do we need to do differently? And how are we going to get there?
yeah.
Right.
What would be kind of cool to take this tool to the next level is, it's like, okay, we're going to use this to help educate you on why we're doing this, why it's important, kind of showing you what the future state can look like, kind of a thing. But that's like, okay, well, what are the steps that you need to take to get to that future state? And so that's where you go with your, like, this is our current state process map, this is our future state process map. these are all the projects that we've identified. These are the how we prioritize them. This is how we measure, impact level and effort levels and ROI. These are the main KPIs that we're going to be tracking. We've developed our ICPs, our buyer, so it's like all these things that you have to do in order to get there. Then it's like, well, this tool now could take you and start walking you through those steps to say, okay, it's like, it's kind of like what we do with a HubSpot onboarding.
Yep.
All right. It's like, but it's the stuff that you do before you get into the portal. That's really important. And, I just had a client call this week where it was like, hey, time out. We can't help you achieve your marketing goals right now because we don't have sales and customer success aligned, and we haven't fully documented your process. Like, I didn't even know that like data could enter the system this way. I didn't even know you had this in your tech stack. You hired me to help you with some very specific marketing challenges, and I'm sorry to tell you, but these are company challenges that need to be fixed before marketing can get any kind of transparency into what's going on. So now it's like this tool here could be used to help educate those other stakeholders, show why they all have a little accountability in this. How what they can all get to, but they have to work together to get there. And so that's why that kind of be a cool step here, just to be like, how do we start now using this to start capturing the information that we need in a organized fashion, right? So we can have our whole RevOps. And it's funny because I actually started playing around with Lovable and coming up with was that Lovable that you used?
I started this on Sunday.
Yeah.
With Cloud Code, actually.
Yeah.
And just yesterday I got it on a real domain.
Yeah.
Because we've got to find ways to tell this story in a more tangible, practical way, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And just as an example, being able to say, like, everybody knows this happens, right? Attended a conference. What happened? Why it mattered? Like, this is the path where it's like, okay, what would have to be true in HubSpot for us to capture like this intelligence, right? We know what traditionally it looks like, right? Salesforce should show like this single entry, like from the campaign, like, oh, they went to this show. Meanwhile, the true, context is in whoever had that conversation, with Jennifer in this case. And if it wasn't the sales rep, it's that context is probably gone forever, right? Because it's not going to make it in because the marketing team doesn't have a place to put it. And they're just asked to send the leads list over, right? Meanwhile, we all know, like, this is where everybody in the room should understand that this is valuable information. And again, like, I think the challenge with SaaS in general is a lot of promises have been made over the last 25 years of what these tools are supposed to be doing for you. But when all the work is on the teams having to fill out all these required fields and just so much, like, they're not doing it, right? Now we've got AI where it's like, no, just bring your conversation in.
Yeah.
And this stuff will populate. Like,
yeah,
that's where I'm at. Like,
I'm getting ready to like throw one of those wearable devices around my neck and start recording in-person conversations. Right? Have you seen some of those?
I have one.
You have one?
Used it at a trade show, and it worked.
Yeah. I was, and then I think this is probably another episode for us to talk about some of these other tools and ways that you can get the data in. But it's like, oh yeah, how do you connect that into HubSpot?
Right. And that's where, like, as we look at this, because I'm going to be using this throughout almost all the content I do, because we have to figure out how to ask HubSpot and AI to give us this context without asking everybody on our team to do more work.
Right. Yes. Right. More drop downs. Not gonna equal more sales.
And can we let go as humans of thinking that we need to maintain the data Because if we can, is there a world where like the only human input is unstructured data,
Sure.
right?
Well, you can get to the point where if you're getting all those conversations in consistently, right?
Yeah.
Then and your team understands how it works too, because it's like when you know that
Trust.
you're well, there's that, but it's also like, for example, when I have my like Fathom note taker going, I will purposely like restate problems, action items. I
Yeah.
will verbalize things that I know will eventually be transcribed and go into the system because it's now going to be. But if you don't think about it that way,
Right.
you're missing out on some opportunities. Not that it's not going to do a good job capturing it, what you're saying, but if you're a little more purposeful for like how you articulate it and how what you say and how you say it, your summaries and your call notes will be that much more actionable.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I'd love to be able to get teams to the place where sales can just go have their calls, go have their meetings, send their emails, do their do whatever they would normally do on whatever, wherever they're going to do it. And then all the data is just being fed into HubSpot. AI is taking the unstructured data. It's automatically updating properties for you. It's automatically moving deal stages for you. It's automatically creating these things for you. So you just, do what we all are trying to accomplish, which is just focus on the customer, focus on helping, you
Yep.
know. But I
Yeah.
think it's baby steps because you have to initially you're not going to be ready for that. So like you have to get good data into the system. So you have to kind of go to the basics, good data governance. Here's our process for how things come in. We do have required properties and conditional properties and stages and things like that. We're just not going to overly complicate it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But eventually, as we get better and better at this thing, we're going to try to, like, our goal should be to start taking more of those asks away from you and feeding you more, and better data to do your job.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
that,
that's the dream.
right. And I think like we're all struggling to figure out what the right baby steps are
Yeah.
right now, but also a part of the value first, like one of the value first principles is uh, transformation over optimization. It's very hard to take the 1% better every day philosophy, which is relevant and still super important in a lot of contexts. But like Zach just like said, what you just said was, okay, great, you're getting your call transcripts in. Do you know how to operate a call in order to help AI understand what happened on that call?
Right.
Right? It's a different, and again, it all connects, which is the hard part, to if you have space in that Monday afternoon meeting to talk about this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? It can happen like that. And
Yeah.
every salesperson can be like, oh, so I just say it like that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey
Yeah.
guys, here's a great example of a call that Chris did, and I want to like show you guys, what data we were able to pull out of the call and compare it to this other call here, which was, also a good call, but just phrased a little bit different. Now we can kind of see, wow, if you guys just talk a little bit differently or ask your questions a little bit differently, or just, just this is how you run these AI, note taker calls to help get, look at what this, Chris can do now with all, while you're sitting here on your lunch break, just trying to fill in some stuff. Chris is, sitting there with his feet up, eating a burrito, watching some YouTube, saying, I already got all my stuff in here. I can take a break and think now and do a little
Yeah.
strategy session while I'm
Or
munching.
even go touch some grass.
Yeah, go
Maybe.
out and go take a walk in the park and recharge your batteries.
Yeah. And if you want to see what that looks like inside of HubSpot, like check out our unboxing that we did last week
Yeah,
with the calls tool, like track terms, summaries, just data. When you get the transcripts in, like, man,
yeah,
AI can work for you.
yeah,
Right. So that's step one, is knowing that that output can happen. And step two is like digging in. And this is the most value of these whatever weekly meetings. Like if you just took 5 or 10 minutes to understand the words that are being said that mean something to the business. Oh man, like these are the kinds of guardrails and systems set up that if you can accomplish for AI, the outputs and the feeling of the value that AI is providing 10x's, 100x's very,
Mhm.
very quickly.
Yeah.
Right? Just needs
Yeah.
a little bit of context. It's not
It needs some, it
it's
needs
not a genie yet,
not yet.
right?
But it needs some good old fashioned, brain power to get it to work. I'm actually doing my final hug event here in person in Rochester. I think it's going to be probably like that, maybe second week of December. Date's still kind of up in the air, on the customer agent. So I'm going to be
Yep.
putting some time in between now and then to kind of program things very similar to like the unboxing that we did, but we're going to do some stuff in person. So I'm excited to dive in a little bit more and continue to set up my own portal in ways where I'm just doing what I need to do every day, and the information is just flowing, naturally, so I can, get some good actionable insights.
Yeah. Well,
So
good on you for keeping that hug going. So important, all the in-person education and the digital stuff.
we need some more people to show up, though.
Yeah.
It's hard. I get it.
It's hard work. It's a different world
It's a different
we're
world
living
in
in now,
person.
but
Yep.
slowly but surely.
Yes. Enough food and alcohol usually, it gets people to show up. So we'll be doing that this time again.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Well,
right, brother.
this has been fun.
Yeah, man.
And we'll be back next week with our buddy Bill Barless to talk
Yeah.
about commerce. I'll say versus revenue, but commerce as compared to revenue and why it's important to understand the difference. I think we're excited about that conversation. So
Cool.
catch us next week sometime. Until then, have an amazing weekend, Zach.
You too, brother,
See
man. It
everybody
was
next
fun.
time.
Good convo. Thanks, bud.
Yep. Bye.
See you.